Today's episode is brought to you by Fretboard Biology, the comprehensive online guitar course put together by Joe Elliott. Now, Joe is not only a fantastic guitar player, he draws on his years of experience as the ex-head of guitar at the Guitar Institute of Technology and also at the McNally Smith Music College. Here's a few words from Joe about the course.
If you're tired of wading through hundreds of random guitar videos and just want to become a better player, Fretboard Biology is your answer. Fretboard Biology is a self-paced, college-level program that'll give you the right instruction, in the right amounts, and in the right order. You'll learn the same information I taught to thousands of other guitar players over 30 years of teaching in top music colleges. If you want to make real progress with your guitar playing, then sign up for a free 7-day trial at fretboardbiology.com.
Hi there, you are listening to the Guitar Speak podcast. My name is Matt Wakeling, and this is the show that I produce in Sydney, Australia. Thank you so much for joining me. Now, today I'm really excited to have Matt Bruck from EVH Gear on the show. Matt started working as Eddie Van Halen's guitar tech in 1990 and was Eddie's business partner at the inception of EVH Gear in 2004. After Eddie's untimely passing in 2020, it was announced that Matt and Wolfgang Van Halen would be running the company, continuing its legacy and looking to the future. Now, Matt joins us to talk about the launch of the long-awaited SA126, Wolfgang's own model. And you might have seen Wolfgang playing this guitar over the last couple of years during the R&D phase. You can also hear it on the latest Mammoth album, Mammoth 2, which I've got to say is a killer record. The guitar holds a really special place in the EVH Gear lineup, being the first from the ground up design in some time, and it's a unique blend of vintage and modern themes. Thanks to Fender Australia, I got to check one out, and that thing rocked. Matt really thoughtfully fills us in on the journey of the guitar from its inception to launch, what it means to continue the legacy of EVH Gear, and why he says that genius runs in the Van Halen family. I really enjoyed speaking to Matt, so let's jump straight into the interview. Matt Bruck, welcome to the Guitar Speak podcast.
Thanks, Matt. Happy to be with you.
Excited to have you on. Congratulations on the launch of the SA126. We've seen this guitar in Wolfgang's hands for quite a few years, but it's just been launched in recent weeks, and must be exciting to have that guitar finally out and about.
It's like having a baby.
Yeah.
And it comes out and it's like, oh, it's got 10 fingers and 10 toes. You're over, I'm over the moon. We all are, everybody that worked on it. So thank you.
That is awesome. Wolfgang said he was looking for his own sound. And from everything I've read about Wolfgang and heard him say in interviews, he's very much his own man. How formed were his ideas at the start of the project? Was it a blank page, or did he have a lot of things he wanted to try and achieve with the guitar?
Well, he had a requirement that was very diverse in terms of the way that the guitar would lend itself to all spectrum of the dynamic. It needs to be aggressive, it needs to be punishing, it needs to be delicate, it needs to be in between, it needs to be all things. And because his music has elements of a very, very wide spectrum of dynamics, so that was definitely a foundation priority. And it needed to be unique in terms of what it sounded like, and lending itself to a signature Wolfgang Van Halen sound.
Was the semi-hollow design always part of the picture?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was. And it was just sort of like, what if we were to create a semi-hollow through an EVH lens or filter?
Mm-hmm.
What would that look like? and I say look like just in terms of like language, right? Like what would it sound like? What would it
Yeah,
look
yeah,
like?
yeah.
Whole thing, right? Um, and I mean, we were excited about it from the moment of aha, you
Uh-huh.
know? And what's really cool is, you have an idea, um, and then you manifest on the idea, and it starts to take on a life of its own, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like, translation from brain to paper to manifesting something in the physical, intangible, is a, you know, really fun process, especially when it goes okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been part of a lot of developments, and they're not all, it's not good times all the time. I mean, sometimes you're like, what are we going to do? How are we going to figure this out? But we always figure it out, and so it was concept to sort of getting everybody sharing the idea, and then manifesting it into a physical form. So to answer your question, yeah, the semi-hollow was always on the table.
Mm-hmm.
But as we built it up, it really took its own path and journey, and kind of manifested itself in a more profound way than I could have ever imagined. It was, at the end of the day, you're like, we're all really grateful for having had this opportunity, for him having been the inspiration. And, I give a lot of credit to our team. I mean, yeah, everybody has a role in our team, and we're just so blessed with such amazingly talented people at EVH, So there's a lot of people that deserve credit on this. People see the people who kind of deliver messages, but there's a lot of people behind the scenes that just we wouldn't have made it without them. It wouldn't be the same.
So I've been reading about guys like Chip Ellis from the Custom Shop, Tim Shaw, who's been on this show a couple of times, being pretty key players as well.
Yeah, and there's a couple people at Fender, Matt Brown, a Herculean type of guy, John Romanowski, another essential person. We are the sum of the parts. We are who we are because of the composition that we are as a group of people, and somehow we're able to develop our ideas and bring them to life with sort of almost like a one-to-one translation, instead of losing aspects of your original idea because you have to manifest it with all types of factors and situations that are real when you're making guitars, all kinds of things, like the availability of woods and the availability of a workforce, and there's a lot that goes into making guitars. None of that should really matter to the person who receives the instrument, puts it in their hand, and then is in a position to enjoy it, be inspired by it, be creative with it, perform with it, create great tones. But there's a lot of factors. So that go into it, and we were able to accomplish our goal and to overcome any obstacles that we might have had along the way. So, yeah, I mean, it's a keystone moment in all of our lives, and God willing, the guitar is going to find its place amongst guitar players, and hopefully find its place for a long time to come as a very useful instrument that allows people to do their thing, for lack of a better term.
That's awesome. That's awesome. When does the process for this start? Because as I said, we've seen Wolfgang playing. Well, I remember him playing 335s a long time ago, but we've seen him playing a Wolfgang the 126 style guitar for quite a while as well.
Yeah. So I mean, it was kind of he had his album on deck his debut album on deck for a while, and we had a launch date in mind. This is going back to 2020, and or even before that. But we dealt with Ed's illness, and at the point in time that Ed passed. I mean, it was only a couple of weeks after that Wolf decided to release his first single.
Yeah.
And that was kind of like, oh, okay, wow, all right. That was very spontaneous. And, what follows when you release a single is the release of an album. And then what follows that is touring. And so, we had a Genesis idea, and then all of a sudden we had tour dates.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, we were trying to get through the proto process, enough to put him out there with his own instrument. And we didn't nail that. I mean, you don't just, there's nobody, Chip doesn't have a magic wand, and, wave it and there's the guitar. I mean, it's a long process. So, we weren't too bad. We got prototypes into his hands pretty quickly. And, right away, it was just different than anything that we had ever heard and it lent itself more to Wolf music and Mammoth music than any guitar that he had ever played before. So we knew we were on the right track.
This episode is brought to you by Fretboard Biology, the comprehensive online guitar course put together by Joe Elliott, ex-head of guitar at the Guitar Institute of Technology and the McNally Smith College of Music. I was one of the beta testers for the course and can say as a music educator, I was really impressed by the logical sequence of learning. The course has also been endorsed by players such as Brett Garsed and Greg Koch. For more details, check out the links in our show notes. When I first see it, I think, okay, Wolf, I know he's played a 335, this makes sense, but it's not a 335 copy. I want to make that really clear. It's a very modern take on the semi-hollow. So it makes sense to me why it's in the EVH range.
Well, that was always our intent, was to take something that in its basic form married well with Wolf's creativity and the tones that he creates and the sounds that he creates and the song structures that he creates, compositions. But, if you ask people what EVH is known for, we're a high performance brand, and that comes right from Eddie Van Halen, who was never satisfied with anything for very long, and always was very forward moving in terms of trying to outdo the last thing that he did. And his tastes and tones always migrated. So they migrated forward. I always refer to him as a guy who was like innovation in perpetual motion, because his tastes changed and his goals changed. And everything that he ever aspired to was always at the top tier of the performance spectrum. So, if Ed could squeeze a micron more of performance out of something, he'd want it. And then it would be incumbent upon myself and everybody that I work with to deliver it to him. And sometimes he would have the solution how to get there. And sometimes we would honor what he was requesting and get ourselves there. Mm-hmm. So for sure, semi-hollow is a classic design, but I mean, if you think of it as sort of like a hot rod, right? You strap nitrous and charge it and, put a high performance suspension on it and fuel inject it. And, that's kind of what we do, and a fast neck and the type of pickups were definitely a challenge. We can talk about that in a minute, but, getting getting a high performance pickup and a semi that doesn't like squeal, that was a process.
On that note then, so I'm interested, which elements of the design really came together quickly and which were the trickier ones, as you've alluded to with the pickups, for example?
So I'll do it in reverse. I'll answer you in reverse. The pickups were the long haul of the process. And the body came together pretty quick because we were creating a semi hollow of the Wolfgang solid body shape. So there was an upscale in the dimension. Chip had really interesting ideas in terms of the center block and how to create that and, keep weight in mind and all that stuff. And, I spent a long time on the headstock, but it wasn't an arduous task. It was a pleasure. It was really fun. It kind of, unfolded.
It's big, man. I love that. It looks cool.
Effing cool, man. I don't know if I can curse. I don't know if I can curse on your show, but big guitars are cool. They make a statement, right? I mean, like a White Falcon's bitching. 335s are bitching. 345s are bitching. Explorers are bitching. Big guitars are cool. And without getting too far outside the question, the pickups were the long haul of the process.
Okay.
And everything else was really reasonable in terms of its effort and realization of our goals. I think it's kind of cool that it's a bolt-on.
Yeah,
that's really outside the normal construction of a guitar like a semi-hollow. Sure, you have like copy guitars from, all the ages of copy guitars where, I don't know, like if you look at some of the copy guitars of the 70s, sure, you had bolt-on examples.
Sure, yeah.
Of set necks and stuff like that. But in this day and age, it's a little different. I mean, manufacturers can pretty much make anything these days, because we're at this point in the journey of the art form, right? It's been around, 70 years, the electric guitar, something like that. So the bolt-on was a really cool thing. It applied itself into EVH DNA. It lined up on everything that we do. Again, the pickups were the hardest thing. The other things were like, they took a little bit of time, but they weren't crazy endeavors to realize.
Sure. So with the guitar being on the road, is there a process, pickups going back and forth, being popped in for shows?
Yeah. So of course, the thing that Ed named and always insisted upon was quote unquote crash testing. And, he was a big car enthusiast, and that's where he got crash testing, from. And he would want to know that, put to the test on the rigors of the road, that anything that had an EVH, that bear the EVH name, and would be worthy. And that we had done all the work for you. We had put it to the test. And, sometimes, when you're doing that, you do experience failures and you learn from those failures. They're really, really important. The overall arc of the mission is that we could go to a music store anywhere in the world, pull one off the rack and go do a show. And that is the same for every Wolfgang guitar. That's the same for SA-126. That's the same for 5150. That's the same for Iconic. Anything that bears our brand name has to be reliable, right? And we just would want everybody to have faith in our stuff the way we would want to have faith in stuff if we were consuming somebody else's product, right? We approach our job as if you were doing it for yourself, because we're doing it for ourselves and everybody. And if we pass our own tests, then we have a good level of confidence that it's going to it's going to deliver under any kind of condition that a working musician or a hobbyist or an enthusiast, whatever the situation is, we want you to be able to rely on the equipment. And you can ask anybody in our program, I usually find a lot of those things. Like, what is this? Phone rings, everybody wants to talk to me. You know what I mean? Like, what's he going to complain about now? So the whole part of it is I'm not complaining for any other reason than we want people to be confident and that they can do whatever they can beat it up as much as they want, and it's not going to fail you. So yeah, I mean, there were certain things on it, like I didn't like the toggle switch on the guitar. We had too many failures of it on the road, that's, tuners, I mean, a lot of manufacturers make products that have a storied history, but they're making them in different countries than they did when they got famous with their products, and they're cheapening their products, and they look okay. And most people don't know, they used to be made in this country and now they're made in this country. Well, they look the same, and like that's sort of like the, a reality of the business, where supply chain people want to get a product for the best price, and, they want it to be reliable, but I want it to be reliable more than anything. So, I mean, there's levels of wax in the pickup. How much wax do you want in that pot, in that potting? What do those pots sound like? Do you like the CTS pot? Do you like the Bourne's pot? Do you like the Alpha pot? What's the tonal signature of that pot? What's the durability of that pot? Everything is analyzed in great detail. What's the sound of that fret like? What's the sound of that nut like? What's the sound of that fretboard like? What's the sound of the 3-ply neck? What's the sound of the scarf joint neck? All of this is under the microscope. So, testing it and crash testing it and going through a long period of time and coming out on the other end going, you know what? It took the beating and kept on ticking. That's a huge thing before we're ready to bring it to anybody's, before we're ever ready to offer it to people as available. It's been diligently tested.
Awesome, man.
And passed the test.
Matt, you said a really interesting thing on the launch video of this guitar. You said genius runs in the family. Can you expand on that comment?
Yeah, I think it means what it means at face value. I mean, Eddie was bona fide genius, in many ways. Alex Van Halen, genius, drummer, genius time, genius meter, genius swing. Those, I didn't have the pleasure of knowing Ed's dad, who he and his brother absolutely adored. But he was a musician too.
Yeah.
And, and I feel like I got to kind of know his dad a little bit because I think Ed was very much in his, Ed was very much, had a lot of traits that his dad had. They all have a level of genius, but it's unique to each one of them. It's not the same. It's a personal signature. Eddie and Wolf had a lot of similarities, but they have a lot of unique features that they didn't share. They sometimes they go about things in a similar manner, and sometimes they go about it in a completely different manner. And Wolf is his own guy. I guess it's really what I'm saying is that he's a genius in his own right, with his own style and his own signature. And I mean, who else writes the songs and plays every instrument on the record, including the vocals and the backgrounds? It's really incredible. That's genius. I can't think of really another family right now But I know there's plenty of examples out there of generational talent and generational skill and ability, you know. Um, so, that's what I mean by it is, he's different than his dad. He's different than his uncle, but in his own signature work, I think he's a genius.
And then with that family connection, what does it mean to you, Matt, to be part of that continuum, having obviously worked with Ed for so long and now working right alongside Wolfgang?
If you had told me in my youth that I would be on this journey as long as I have and been able to hang in there, and as long as I have, on merits of my substance, that is the only thing that's really kept me continuing to face challenges and goals and accomplish things. I always wanted to be as good at what I did and my job and function as Eddie was. And, people get, well, that's crazy type of, because Eddie was so talented and stuff. But that was the goal that I set for myself. I wanted to be as good in my job as he was in his job, and I spared nothing in terms of my pursuit of that goal. I'll just give it everything I got, and I always do. That's just who I am. Because that's my work ethic. Van Halen was an incredibly talented group of people, especially Ed now, but they worked their ass off. They worked their asses off. They came from another country. They immigrated to this country. They had no money. They didn't know the language. They worked their asses off. And I have too. And so, we had alignment how we approach things, and how we prioritize things and what type of commitment we have. So, like, to answer your question, like, I'm honored and I'm humbled, and I don't take anything for granted. So, I'm only as good as my last day's work, and I'm only as good as the last project that I've been involved in. And I think that you're supposed to challenge yourself, because I think life is an evolution and a journey of growth and expansion. And so, you want to challenge yourself. Like, we worked so long on SA 126, years and years and years, and, I already shared with you that I really wanted to find its place in the world and become a go-to instrument that sits alongside of other legacy iconic instruments that have already found their place in history. But the point I'm getting at is that most of life is the pursuit of success. And I think that the amount of time that you spend savoring your success is kind of minimal compared to the time that you spend getting to the success. And it's like the minute you achieve that success, you kind of want to, for me, it's like, what's next? You want to take what you've accomplished and leverage that into your future. So what does it mean to me? I'm humbled and I'm honored. And, I just always want to have opportunity, and I always want to challenge myself and the team that I'm part of, and it's like, until they kick us out or tell us no, thank you. I'm going to continue doing what I've been doing, because I want to make a mark, and I also feel like, even though Ed is not with us anymore, his legacy lives on. And I take the role of, good custodian of Eddie's legacy extremely seriously. I want future generations to know about him, and I want this generation and previous generations to know about Wolf, and I want future generations to know about Wolf, and I want people to know, how incredibly talented they both are. Pardon me. And Yeah, I mean, I want to make a mark, and I want that mark to live on. I think of Eddie as on par with Beethoven. I really do. I think 100 years from now, people are going to damn well know his name, damn well know what he did, and I have never seen anything like him in my life since him. And I would say with a good amount of confidence, he was a one of a kind. It'll never be repeated. And I want that legacy as strong and fortified as I can possibly contribute to make it to be.
I love that. And I agree 100%. And what a cool thing that you're part of that for, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's a part of it that I can't think of anything other than fate. How did I get here? I don't know. I mean, I've just always worked really hard, taken advantage of every opportunity that I ever had. I'm not, I'm happy to share with you. I'm really proud that I've been able to hang in as long as I have and deliver the goods and be a useful contributor to group efforts and group goals, And I think on some kind of subliminal level, everybody that picks up an EVH instrument or amplifier or product, they might not know all that I'm explaining to you, all that I'm sharing with you, but I think kind of subconsciously, if you really give it everything that you've got, there's sort of a subliminal quality and substance to the things that represent your work and your effort. In our case, it's guitars, amplifiers, and accessories and sound, right? Sound, I see all these guitars on your wall, I mean, what is better than what we do? What is better than being inspired? What is better than coming up with a song idea or listening to a song and it just floors you and you can't not think about it? It's got you it's got you. And it's like, this is magic. This is magic. And we live in such a crazy world, frightening at times, right? Joyous at other, but what we're talking about is joy. What we're talking about is happiness, is inspiration, and sharing it, right? Because music is it's shared, You can have your moment by yourself and go, I can't believe I wrote that. I can't believe I played that riff. I can't believe I learned that solo. But inevitably, you wind up sharing it with people, and that's kind of righteous, There's just like nothing bad about that. And we need that. We need that. We need that more than ever, because it's a complicated world and there's things that are really scary. So this is a really important counterbalance.
Could not agree more. Matt Bruck, thank you so much for your time today. Thanks for getting on the podcast. And I'm thrilled to meet you and chat about all this stuff.
My pleasure, Matt. Thank you. I had a good time.
All right, there you go. Matt Bruck on the Guitar Speak podcast. I so loved speaking with Matt. What a great guest, and hope you enjoyed the interview as well. Big thanks to Jack at Fender Australia for helping organise this conversation. And thanks also to Fretboard Biology, longtime friends of the show and sponsors. Big shout out to Joe and the team over there. Alrighty then, time to go. But before I do, I like to leave you with the words of wisdom that Michael Schenker, back on episode number 150, left us.
Keep rocking, keep on rocking.
Keep on rocking indeed. See you next time.